Welcome to the Ketovangelist Kitchen. I'm Brian.
And I'm Carrie.
And this podcast is dedicated to making things simple and easy for you in the kitchen. Carrie Brown is a classically trained, world-class chef who has a passion for creating ketogenic recipes that taste better than anything you've ever experienced. But more than that, she loves teaching people how to cook the right way.
And each week on this podcast, Brian and I discuss all the ways you can create awesome keto food that is guaranteed to make you a rock star in the kitchen.
If you'd like to learn more about Ketovangelist Kitchen, you can go to KetoVangelistKitchen.com and sign up for the newsletter.
In exchange for your email address, you'll get brand new recipes delivered to your inbox, ready for you to whip up in the kitchen and enjoy with your friends and family.
So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and learn. You're about to enter the Ketovangelist Kitchen. All right, so we've established off air that Carrie Brown is not a fan of Blackadder and is not a fan of Monty Python because, as she put it, in England, when those shows came on, that's when the girls go shopping or go make tea or something like that. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
All right, so the question then becomes, what comedy shows are, and if you say Ab Fab, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't know if I can take it. But what is the comedy show that women would watch in England?
No idea.
This, I think.
Are You Being Served?
Okay, that's a good one. That's a very good one. All right. And Faulty Towers? No, is that too much?
Oh no, not girls. No, girls. No, girls don't like Faulty Towers. We don't understand Faulty Towers or Blackadder, or we just don't get it. We're just like, what? Okay. Why is that funny? Right. We're going shopping. Bye. See ya.
There's a secret too. I think a lot of guys are like, "Hey, why is that funny?" But they see all the other guys laughing, so they just laugh, and they just don't want to be the one that doesn't get it. I think that happens a lot too. So I don't know. Hello, everyone. This is the Ketovangelist Kitchen. I'm Brian, and she is
Carrie Brown.
Well, her name is technically Carrie Brown, but we still aren't quite sure what's going on there. So just so everyone knows, we're still doing some research on that, but we'll come back to that topic. All right. So Carrie Brown.
Hello.
What are we talking about today? Can I call you CB?
You may.
All right. Then I don't want to. I need a nickname that you don't like so I can stick that in there and be like, hey, I'm kidding. I don't do that. All right. What are we talking about today?
Weighing.
Weighing, as in weighing yourself or weighing things or weighing food. What are you talking about? Damon weighings? What are we talking about?
Food. Weighing of the food.
Okay. So I'm going to use my context clues here. You're talking about weighing food in relationship to recipes, or are you just talking about arbitrarily finding, like going to friends' houses and just weighing what they have and then tallying them up and seeing who has the most amount of food?
I randomly weigh food things, but that's not kind of what I would encourage others to do.
Do you take a scale with you to the grocery store, like as you're walking through the aisle, like, I wonder how much those nuts weigh? Bloom. What I know, 27 grams. Next.
Well, no, but only because most stores these days have scales, so you don't have to be that odd. I only have to be a little bit odd.
So you just, instead of bringing your own, you bring all of your foodstuffs over to those scales.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about
if I'm missing at the weekend, I can usually be found weighing things at the grocery store.
Now, do you actually write them down, or you just get the sheer joy out of seeing the numbers pop up?
That, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's your subtle way of saying, hey, shut up and move on.
Yes.
Okay.
Did it work?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. The jury's still out. We'll see. So we're talking about weighing stuff. Now, the reason that you want to talk about weighing stuff is because it is a number of reasons, but here are the main ones. One, you care that people have hard times making simple meals, simple recipes. And weighing stuff is a relatively easy solution to a lot of people's problems. Two, you're frustrated by the sheer amount of misinformation or incorrect information given out when it comes to the simple idea of weights and measures, especially when it comes to food. Am I right about that?
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay. Is there anything that I missed? Is there something that you want to add to that in terms of frustrations or irritations or agitations or any other Asians?
Probably a lot, but let's just stick with those two for now.
All right. So just so you know, Carrie Brown has a list of pet peeves almost as long as mine. Almost. But she wrote hers in metric, so it's possible that it may actually be longer, but we're using standard measurements now. All right, so weighing stuff. Here's the thing.
So the bottom line is that my wish for everyone who wants to cook is that they have success. Every time they cook, they have a success. And it just makes me sad that I see so very many people not having success and assuming that that's because they can't do it, when actually a lot of the problems are to do with inaccuracies in weighing.
Right.
And so that's why this bothers me. It doesn't bother me for me. It bothers me because I want everyone to be successful in the kitchen. And the whole weighing thing, particularly baking, not in cooking, not so much, but in baking, it's incredibly easy to have fails if the measures aren't right or if the recipe's wrong. And I want to help lessen the fails.
Okay, so some of the things we need to establish from the get-go, because I'm kind of Socratic. I like to define terms. I like to explain things so that everyone understands where we're coming from, right? Context is important. When we're talking about weighing, that is a particular kind of measurement. The thing that people confuse, and it's one of Carrie's and my frustrations, is they confuse weight with volume, because those are two very different things, and they think that it's a simple calculation to go from one to the other, and it's universal and it translates every single time, and nothing could be further from the truth, right? So when we're talking about weighing, we're talking about actual, no joke, gravitational pull on an object, not volume, right?
Right.
All right. So the key here is we're talking about weighing something. So we're talking about something that's either in ounces or grams or pounds or kilograms, something like that. Now, if you're cooking in kilograms, that's a lot of food. I'm just going to put that out there right now. But anyway, that's the same idea. When we're talking about volume, we're talking about cups. We're talking about liters. We're talking about those kinds of things. That's not the same thing, folks. Not the same thing at all. All right, you want to,
and they are not interchangeable.
Okay,
and that's where I think a lot of particularly for folks who don't live in America, who so many of the blogs are written in cups, and so people who aren't in America don't understand cups, and they don't have cups, and so one of the biggest questions is, what can you convert cups to a quantity for me? And that is where it all tends to go horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. And people are wasting expensive ingredients, and they're getting frustrated, and they think they suck at in the kitchen, and it's just and there's no need for it, and it makes me sad.
All right. So another thing that along with, okay, so look, if you've listened to this particular segment of the podcast for any period of time, you know that Carrie is infectious in her intensity of how much she likes cooking and how much she enjoys helping people prepare food, the whole bit, right? So one of the side effects of me doing this every week is that I'm beginning to absorb some of that, much to my chagrin. So Carrie has like this really intense desire to help people with all this stuff. And it stems from the fact that she firmly believes, understands, and knows that the keto recipes, the ones that are done correctly, are great. And it's the ones that get done poorly that that people say, oh, those keto recipes suck. Those are the ones that, they're ruining it for the rest of us, right? Is kind of what I'm getting at, right? No? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
They can't hear you.
Yes.
See, I'm watching Sherry. I'm watching Sherry. That's my wife's name. I'm watching Carrie nod her head up and down, she's not knowing that people can't hear that, right? So I'm trying, now I have to, okay, so for folks, it may sound different.
You painted such a good picture of my infectiousness that I didn't think I actually needed to speak.
Right, you didn't need to infect anything else. So we got Carrie a new microphone for the show, and it sounds tremendously wonderful now. So I think that's what's throwing her off. Like it's a new thing. She's got to get used to it a little bit. All right.
Yes, I can't flail as much as normal.
Right,
because if I flail, I'm going to knock my microphone off.
Right. I told her that she had to settle it down a little bit. If you'll remember a couple of episodes ago, we had a bit of her, almost getting Italian on me when she was just going to town with all of the gestures. So she's going to have to tone that down a bit. All right. So what's the deal with the weighing and why is it important?
So I think the biggest problem is when non-Americans ask for a conversion from a recipe that has dry ingredients measured in cups and wants to know what that is in a weight.
Okay.
That's one of the big problems. Or the reverse of that, which I get because I do not use cups for dry ingredients, period, at all, ever. I write all my recipes in imperial and metric. I use cups and fluid ounces for liquids. But I get people asking me what 8 ounces of ground almonds is in cups. They're wanting me to convert a finite weight into a cup. This is where as Brian indicated earlier, this is where the big problem arises, is that one is a volume and the other is a weight, and you simply can't easily convert one to the other. Right. Because everything weighs something different. And there was actually what really got me fired up about talking about this today.
Good choice. Good choice of words. Fired up. Not at all the words she was using before, but still a good choice, a good way to describe it. Go ahead.
Was on Brian's Ketogenic Success Facebook group the other day, a lovely lady from England said, help me with, I have all these American recipes with cups. What is that in weights? And there was a billion responses, and 99.9% of them were wrong. But it's not because people were trying to help. But there's a basic misunderstanding about the whole cup to weight thing, which is that everything weighs something different. So a cup of, and we'll use the common example, and I think this is a bit where the confusion comes in, because there's that old adage, what weighs more, a pound of feathers or a pound of lead?
I know the answer to that. I know the answer to that.
You do?
Yes. No, I don't.
Okay. So, which of course is that they weigh the same.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. I knew it.
Right. It's a pound. But if you have a pound of feathers, physical pound of feathers on your table and a pound of lead, there's going to be like a rather larger volume of feathers than lead.
Right.
So, I think that's where the confusion came from. When one lady said a cup is 8 ounces. And then another lady asked, feathers or lead? And the response was both.
False.
1 cup of feathers or 1 cup of lead equals 8 ounces, which is completely wrong. And that's so a cup of ground almonds, if you weigh that, it's not 8 ounces.
Right. And so it gets even more complicated, because you can take a cup of feathers that are just dropped into a cup, and you can take a cup of feathers that are mashed down into a cup, and they're going to weigh different, right? Because And the food example of that is because, and let me just point that out. If you're putting feathers in your recipes, I would suggest maybe, just maybe, you're doing it wrong. But that's not for me to say. You do you. But from a cooking perspective, let's say you needed to put a cup of ground almonds. If you take coarsely ground almonds and you put a cup worth, versus finely ground almonds, a cup worth, they're not going to weigh the same. They're both a cup of almonds, but because of the volume, the surface area involved, the sheer density of everything that's involved, how much space it's actually taking up, the weight is different, right? So it doesn't even have to be two different things. It can be the same thing, but just cut up differently. Coarsely chopped
Right.
onions versus finely chopped onions, that sort of thing.
Right. So if you've got a cup, if you fill a cup with whole almonds, just put them in a
Whole
cup,
almonds.
and then grind them to make ground almonds, you will no longer have a cup of ground almonds,
No.
even though you started with a cup of almonds,
Right.
right? Because the ground almonds take up much less volume,
Right.
but you still have the same weight of almonds,
Right.
but the volume is completely different. So, and that brings up a good point, which is why I never use a system of volume when I'm using dry ingredients. I weigh dry ingredients because it's the only way that you are ever going to get a consistent result. For example, I mean, even if we're just talking about a cup of ground almonds, as Brian said, you could pack those almonds in, or you could just scoop it up and it be all loose, or you can do the scoop and swipe or whatever.
Scoop and swipe.
You are never going to have exactly the same finite quantity of ground almonds in that cup every single time you do it. So your recipes, and particularly with baking, your recipes are going to be off the majority of the time. So you are not going to get the same result or a consistent result by using volume for dry ingredients. But you're probably going to think, well, that's because I can't cook or because I did something wrong. It's not. It's just the inaccuracies that using volume measures inherently brings to the world for dry ingredients. Wet ingredients is fine, but dry ingredients.
Right.
So I beg you, get yourselves a little kitchen food scale, $10, weigh. You will save yourself so much money in baking fail and thrown away ingredients or frustration or, feelings like you can't do it or all of that stuff. For that $10 buying a scale, you are going to save yourself a fortune emotionally, but also physically, because you're going to have that much more success in the kitchen. So that's why I never use volumes or cups for dry ingredients.
Okay.
However,
go ahead.
A lot of the recipes, in fact, most of the recipes written in America use the cup system because that's how they grew up. That's what they grew up with. So there are people who are outside the US who still want to know, okay, so how do I convert? So there is no, unless somebody has spent months of their life creating conversion charts for every single food on earth, there is no conversion. There's no easy conversion because ground almonds a cup of ground almonds is not 8 ounces. A cup of erythritol is not 8. They're all different. So as I say, unless somewhere there's a chart saying a cup of ground almonds equals X or a cup of whatever equals, then there's just no way to convert.
Right. So the big point of what Carrie's getting at there is stop trying to, right? Part of the frustration from Carrie's point of view is she knows this when she creates her recipes. Now, she didn't say this. I'm putting words in her mouth. Okay.
Typical.
Right. Americans. But part of her frustration is she knows all of this, so she writes her recipes specifically with this in mind. She puts the imperial and the metric measurements of the weight involved, and people still insist on using volume type measurements for it. And they ask her, please convert. And this is where she's getting at, and she's nice enough to respond kindly to them to basically say, piss off. But
no, I no, because I want to help people,
right.
And people they genuinely don't understand this. They grew up in a different world with, if you grew up with one way, it's hard to change. I get that. But I've had so many people now, after all the years I've been producing recipes, who now say to me, I was so mad with you when you made me go and get a scale, but now I understand why, and now I see why you do it that way, and now I weigh everything, and now I'm more consistent, and the recipes all rock, and I know they're going to work, and, I'm a hero in the kitchen. So that's why I'm not going to change my stance on this. I won't use cups and if you ask me what is 8 ounces of ground almonds in cups, I'm probably going to send you a link to my blog posts, which says why I'm not going to tell you, or why just buy a scale.
Right. So here's the thing. On Amazon, $11. It's a great scale. It's Ozeri is the name of the manufacturer. Ozeri. It is a digital scale. Any scale that you get, I don't care, but you need to make sure that it has the ability to tare, because not every one of them does, right? So tearing is essentially, it allows you to zero out a scale with a weight that's already on it. So if you put a bowl onto it and then you start adding stuff to that bowl, by the way Carrie writes her recipes, all the solid ingredients, since they're all done by weight, you don't have to have separate bowls for everything. You can just throw them all in and just keep tearing things. Now, tearing is when you zero it out, right? So you put a bowl on, turns out that bowl weighs 100 grams, you hit the tear button, the scale now reads 0, right? Now, if you pick the bowl up, the scale will read negative 100 grams, because it's essentially zeroing out with whatever weight's on it. So let's say you've got four dry ingredients. Each one of them is 20 grams each. You put the first one in, the scale now reads 20. You can tear that out, or you can do simple math and do the next one, which should say 40. The next one will say 60, and the next one will say 80. Once the numbers work, you've got all the ingredients the way they're supposed to be, right? That's that. So make sure the tear is part of the functionality of the scale. Most of them do, but some of them don't. And let me tell you, get a digital one. Don't do one of these like old timey scales with the little hand, like analog things, because those are a big pain and they're not accurate at all. Okay, so go get yourself a digital one if you don't have one already. Make sure it can tare, Tare, and use it, right? So part of the frustration, like I was saying, was Carrie writes her recipes specifically for this stuff, and when people don't do it, it's quite frustrating, because she's trying to make this foolproof for you. Don't try to overcomplicate things, right? Just because you're used to measuring things in cups or measuring by volume doesn't mean it's the right way, and there's probably a better way. So give yourself a chance, give yourself a shot, try it this way. Now, what are, if any, what are the things that people need to consider when they're talking about weighing stuff? Now, we've talked about the difference between weight and volume, but is there anything in particular they need to be like, maybe not concerned about, but aware of when they're doing this sort of stuff?
The other thing that came out of the epic, how do I convert cups to a weight thread, was that after several people said a cup is 8 ounces, which we now know is not true, somebody else chimed in that a cup is 8 ounces and 8 fluid ounces, which is correct. A cup is 8 fluid ounces.
Right.
But then they said that was the same as 8 ounces.
Yeah, that's not the same.
Which it isn't. Fluid ounces and ounces are not the same. And you can do a quick test. You can get a cup of, and I did it because my head was about to explode reading this whole thread, and so I went and I knew the answer, but I thought I'm going mad. I'm going to test it, and I weighed. So I got a cup full of water, and I had a container on my scale, and I tared it out so the scale's at 0.
Look at you.
And I tipped the water in. 8 fluid ounces of water does not weigh 8 ounces.
You did not lob the water in,
I
right?
didn't. I
Okay.
poured it very carefully because I wanted every single drop to be
Right.
weighed.
Right. So, and this is another key point. Okay. And this is a huge like pet peeve of mine. Now we've got starting on the pet peeves. The whole dry cups versus liquid cups is, measuring cups are specifically designed for liquids. A cup of liquid, like you're talking about, is not the same as a cup of dry ingredients. So the measuring spoons that are cup sizes, those are different sizes. Those are not equal, right? A cup of, cup versus tablespoon, teaspoon, those dry small, spoon type things are not the same as your liquid cup containers. They don't equal the same thing. So use the right apparatus to measure correctly. Not only that, but uh, cup containers from different manufacturers are slightly different as well. Again, when you're talking about measuring volume stuff, it's not as precise as measuring weight of stuff, right? Because it's not as universal. If you buy a set of measuring cups, dry, quote unquote dry measuring cups from, say, Target, or what's a department store in England that people would buy stuff from?
British Home Stores.
Okay, is that an actual store name or is that just a description?
Yes,
Okay,
BHS.
BHS. Okay, so
Or Debenhams.
okay, I like that one way better. I don't know why, but
Debenhams.
Debenhams. I'm going to Debenhams. Um, it sounds like you're going to your friend Debbie's house, and she has a bunch of roommates. I'm going to Debenhams. No, yeah, all right. Anyway,
Or John Lewis if you're upper crust.
oh, if you're the upstairs of Downton Abbey, that's where you're
If
going.
you're the upstairs of Downton Abbey, you're going to John Lewis.
Okay, so if you go to BHS or Debenhams or John Lewis, and you buy a set of these measuring spoons, measuring cups, these dry measuring cups, they're not all going to be the same, right? A cup is not a cup is not a cup. Just the manufacturer doesn't have the same strict requirements. It's not as universal. And that's because we're talking about volume, right? So use the right tool for the job is kind of what I'm getting at. Have I made my point in that regard, Carrie Brown?
Yes.
You're finished listening to me rant about this then?
And don't confuse fluid ounces with ounces. And yes, just get a scale.
All right. So here's the thing. And this is okay. So here's the catch, right? So Carrie Brown knows this and she writes her recipes for this specific thing. However, the vast majority don't have their recipes written for this. I mean, the vast majority, like she was like Carrie was talking about, this poor unfortunate British person was saying, help, everything's written in cups. What do I do? So what's the answer there? Aside from trying to make conversions that are generalistic and false, what do? Because my answer is you basically make the recipe by weighing everything according to whatever the cups are, and then you adjust as moving forward as you troubleshoot it, right? I mean, it's essentially what you have to do.
Right. Unless there is, and I haven't looked, unless there is somebody has gone to the trouble of weighing every dry ingredient known to man and made a chart which says what 1 cup is. I don't know if that exists. I looked at a couple after this thread went down. I looked at a couple and they were just generic cup to ounce. Right. And most of them didn't even say cup to fluid ounce. They said cup to ounce. So it's no wonder everybody gets so confused.
Right. Right. So the point is, though, if you get a recipe and it doesn't have the weights of stuff, it's only got volumes, then weigh them out. Like, go by the volume that they said, weigh it out, write it down, take notes, see how the recipe comes out. If you need to make adjustments up or down, make those adjustments, make the notes. Then you can slowly start to dial in your recipes a little bit. Now, it's not as...
And that's exactly what I do. Or at the times where if I start, particularly if it's something that I don't know...
Hold on. Wait a second. Wait a second. Are you saying, Carrie Brown, that there are things that you do not know? Because I am calling shenanigans completely.
No, there are. I mean, so Brian and Sherry and I were on a text last night, And Sherry's like talking about cornbread, and I'm like, what's cornbread?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And we were like, how do you not know what cornbread is? Because, we grew up in the South of America.
Right. So there are, if I come across, if somebody's asked me to make something and I'm like, so, Sherry now, cornbread. So I'll have to go out onto the interwebs and find a starting point, because I have no idea. I don't know what it tastes like. I don't know what the texture is like. So I'll go and I'll try and find one which I think looks like a good cornbread. And so I'll start with that recipe, but I'll always do exactly what you said, where I'll scoop out a cup and then I'll weigh it, and then I write that down. And then as I work on developing the recipe and making it work properly and taste right and right texture and all that kind of stuff, then I'll just, make different batches and tweak the weights until I end up with a final recipe that is in weights that will work every single time, because when you weigh stuff, it's exact.
Right. Unless you're unless you're on Mars or the moon, or when you're in a place that the gravity is different. Now, if you're cooking a nice Italian meal on Mars, something has gone horribly, horribly wrong. I'm just saying. I'm just going to suggest that. Okay, so I want to go back to this cornbread thing. There is I think it's Italian. I don't know for sure, but there is it starts with a P. I can't remember the name of it, but it is an actual like side dish thing that is very similar to cornbread, but I don't remember what it's called. And I'm sure that if I said it to you, you would know what it was, because you're very worldly. And when it comes to recipes, does anything that I'm saying ring a bell to you?
The only thing with P that would be vaguely like bready would be panettone, but that's kind of more like brioche with fruit in.
That's not it. All right, I'll have to think about it. I think I've had it at a Brazilian steakhouse, and it was maybe it's not Italian, but it's very similar to cornbread, and I'm sure that you.
Well, Brazil and Italy are close. I can see how you'd be confused.
Right, they're very close. They're only an ocean apart.
Or two.
Right. Wait. Wait a second. I'm not.
Depending on which side of Brazil you're on.
Oh man. It depends on which Brazil you're going from. If you're going from West Brazil, totally different scenario than East Brazil. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, I'm with
there's
you.
like, if you're going west, there's like 5 billion oceans.
Right. And a whole bunch of mountains and piranhas.
A whole bunch of mountains.
Right. Yeah, that's not what I meant.
Volcanoes. In fact, don't go west. West sounds dangerous.
Anyone who's listening, and if you're considering going west, just reconsider. Reconsider that right now. You're welcome. You're welcome, and we'll take it from here. Just go east, hop on a boat. It's a whole lot easier. All right, so the big takeaway here is, aside from the Brazil thing, which you're welcome, is stay with the weights of the dry ingredients, right? And Carrie's just explained how she troubleshoots her recipes, so there's no reason why you can't as well. Get yourself a nice scale, have the ability to tare, and work through the recipes that are given to you, and then note them for your own self by weights, because you can reproduce it exactly the same way that way, right? Because gravity's not changing anytime soon. What else am I missed? What's the
hands up, this does suck for all our non-living in America people. This sucks because
right.
Because America is full of, or the World Wide Web is full of American blogs that only use cups. So for you, it sucks. But I'd rather tell you that than have you continue to be frustrated around, having recipe fails because somebody told you that a cup is 8 ounces, which is true for something, but I don't know what that something is. But it's not true for other things. And so this is absolutely not what you wanted to hear, but I don't want you to carry on either having fails or being frustrated or just throwing up your hands and walking away over measuring stuff.
Right. It's a simple fix. I mean, it's a simple fix. It may not necessarily be easy, but it's not something that is. Plus, I think the net gain is that you'll be able to create recipes consistently and that are something that you enjoy, right? So part of the frustration for people, especially when they're new to this sort of thing, is they think they suck at cooking. And it's not that they suck at cooking, they just don't have quite the technique or they don't have quite the understanding of what to do. But if you start doing it this way and you can standardize in this way, you start to see those results, consistency, and you start enjoying it a little bit more, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
And so, and obviously my blog, all the recipes are actually, maybe not, I'm still working on some of them, but most of the recipes are in everything. And in all my cookbooks, everything is in metric and imperial. So wherever you are, you should be able to get the exact same result. And you don't have to think about any of the converting because I've already done all the converting for you in my recipes. So whatever language you speak, you can read the recipe.
All right. So there you go. That's the final word on it is, it may not be necessarily easy. It could possibly be time consuming, but the payoff is good if you really want to get better at your cooking techniques. All right, Carrie Brown.
One more word.
Okay, go ahead.
Sweeteners.
Thank you. Oh,
because, and we're still talking about weighing and measuring.
Okay.
But sweeteners, particularly, people don't even think about this because why should they? But if you have a lot of recipes these days will say, a cup of erythritol.
Uh-huh.
And then it'll say, grind your erythritol into powdered erythritol.
Right.
Right. Well, you now don't have a cup.
Right.
So when it comes to things like that, the recipe needs to be really clear whether you want a cup of powdered erythritol,
right,
or a cup of granular erythritol or xylitol or whatever sweetener you're using. There's a difference in the volume and therefore the weight of granular versus powdered sweeteners. So if it's saying use granular and then grind it, or vice versa, you're going to have a problem.
Right. Straight off the bat, you're going to have a problem. And
just be aware of it.
And the solution is also don't just use salt, right? Don't just say, bollocks and start using salt, right? That would not be a good solution. Am I right? I know my way around a kitchen, right? No? Yes? Okay. Carrie Brown she's shaking her head at me.
Quietly weeping in the corner.
My work is done here. All right, Carrie Brown, thank you very much. We'll talk to you next week.
See ya.